Docker network drivers. We have seen that there are many drivers which are there as a part of Docker installation. So what are these different network drivers which are available and how do they become useful and in what type of situation they are useful? First and most important of all, especially for the applications which run on individual host, is a bridge network. Now, bridge network, remember, is a private network restricted to a single Docker host. That means on one machine, if you are trying to develop applications and if they have to communicate with each other, that means on a single operating system instance, if you have multiple containers instantiated, and if these two containers have to communicate with each other, yes, we can make use of the Docker bridge network. So let us say if this is a container and this is a container, both the containers have their respective IP 172.18.0.2 and 172.18.0.3. That's the IP which is provided to both the containers. And these IPs are actually provided by the bridge network. So one container can literally ping using this bridge to the other container. And I'm going to show you this practically in the next session. But yes, if there are two containers and if both are on the same host, there is a bridge network which is automatically created between them. And through this bridge, all the data transfer will happen from one container to the other container, including the ping operation. So this can ping this container and this can also ping this container. But very importantly, if a container is created on a different host, bridge cannot be used for communicating with the container on a different host. It is only for communication within the host. So even though the underlying operating system has formed a network with another host, another machine, still bridge network cannot be used for communication. That is the situation in which overlay network comes into the picture. So bridge cannot be used for communicating between containers running in different bridge even if they are on same containers. This actually is not required. Now what is this overlay network? Overlay networks are best when you want one container in one host to communicate with a host in a different container. So let us say this is one container in one Docker host and this is another container in the other Docker host. And this has got its IP with this is the internal gateway which is created. This is also the internal gateway which is created, but this is the, let's say, the IP which is assigned to the host. And this IP is actually provided by the overlay network. So between two hosts, there is an overlay network created, and through the IP assigned for the overlay network, one container can communicate with the other container. So overlay networks are best when you need containers running on different hosts to communicate, or when applications work together using a swarm services. Very important. If you are creating a swarm service, then also overlay network is going to be used for communication between different Docker hosts. Work on any cloud or on-premise environment. That means the same overlay network doesn't necessarily need to work only in your local environment or on-premise environment. The same is also used even in cloud. Let it be AWS cloud or Azure cloud or Google cloud. There also the same overlay network is going to be operating. And of course, what is also important is when the data is transferred over the overlay network, it's pretty much secured. There is automatic encryption and decryption also, which is taken care of internally. And then finally, we have got one more network which is popular, that is MAC VLAN network. It allows you to assign a MAC address to the container. Direct MAC address is given to a container, and what is the advantage? It appears as if the container itself is physically present on the network. It becomes as good as a physical device on the network. So the Docker daemon routes traffic to the container by their MAC addresses. So that is the basic advantage here. It is going to be very fast because there is no extra routing. and they are the best when you are specially migrating your application which is already existing on a virtual machine. You just want to migrate this as it is without much of effort. So in such kind of cases, it is recommended to make use of the MAC-VLAN network where direct containers are exposed as devices over the network and they give high performance. They don't need NAT or Linux bridge. So if this is your MAC-VLAN network, it connects to the external network. An external network will have IPs, let's say in the range of 192.168.10.1 and so on. Here you see 192.168.10.2. The same IP series is working here also for the container. Unlike in other cases, the same IP series may not be there. So these are the three major popular types of networks. And of course, there are many more too. But for the basic understanding, these three are good enough. And for our kind of course, we are only going to discuss about bridge network little more in detail. Thank you.